I'm Neil Kline, and I'm here with Joe Tarnowski, who is a UW-Madison physics major who was the main leader in creating the world's largest Rice Krispy bar. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
If we could just start with the story of how you got the idea to make the world's largest Rice Krispy bar, because it's no small feat.
Yeah, so last year in my dorm room, me and a couple friends got together and I actually ate a bunch of my roommate's Rice Krispie treats that his mom brought him, and I felt bad, so I decided to make him some in return. And I ended up making a 15-pound Rice Krispie treat. And some of the kids in my dorm suggested that that's got to be like a world record. So we looked up the world record, and we decided, well, this is actually beatable, so let's just try to go ahead and do it.
What were the logistics of making this? How did you do it? How much of everything did you need? You know, all of those kinds of things to make the world's largest. And of course, how big did it actually wind up being?
Yeah, so when we started out, we really didn't know anything, obviously. Our first step in the process was actually to look at the recipe on the box and say, okay, how many of each ingredient do we actually need to make this? You know, we want to make a 15,000-pound Rice Krispie treat. Mm-hmm. So we decided that 9,000 pounds of marshmallows, 5,500 pounds of Rice Krispies, and 1,000 pounds of butter were the numbers that we needed. And those were approximate, like that way we'd have a little bit of room for error in case, you know, some stuff got dumped on the ground. So we emailed some companies and we found donors for all the ingredients. And after we got that, we were like, okay, well, this can actually happen. So then we started to think about the process. And after going through several different renditions, eventually we came to the idea of, let's boil giant tubs, well, we used garbage cans full of water, and then let's put marshmallows and butter in plastic bags, zip tie them, put them in the water so that it'll boil them, they'll melt down, and then we can cut those open over a large tub full of Rice Krispies cereal, mix it up to even consistency, and dump it into a giant square mold. That was kind of it. And eventually, after cooking for 30-some hours, we got to 1 in the morning on Saturday with the record of 11,327 pounds.
Wow.
I haven't done the actual calculation yet for what we ended up with, but for 15,000 pounds it would have been 21 million calories, or just over. So yeah, that's a lot of calories. You can't eat that in a reasonable amount of time.
So I went and another friend of mine from the Daily Cardinal, we went on Saturday Saturday or Sunday. And we were watching you cut it apart with hacksaws, I believe?
We were using a food-safe Sawzall. So we bought new Sawzalls and new stainless steel blades to cut it apart. We thought that'd be the easiest way to get giant chunks off of the mold, give those to other people who could cut it up into smaller pieces, and then wrap it or put it in bags for people to buy.
Okay, so speaking of buying then, all of the money that you're raising for this are going to local Dane County charities?
Yep, we are donating to 2 local charities, Camp Kesem and the United Way of Dane County.
Okay, I'm not sure I've heard of Camp Kesem.
Camp Kesem is a charity who supports kids whose parents are going through or have passed away from cancer.
Okay.
And helps them,
Heal.
Yeah.
If that's
Yeah,
possible.
it's a camp for them to go to engage with other kids with the same experience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Because how tall was this thing eventually?
The mold went up to 8 foot tall. The Rice Krispie came up to about 7.5 foot.
How much money have you raised so far selling it?
So far, I'm not entirely sure, but I know it's over $7,000 that we will be donating to charity, and we haven't sold off all of it yet. So hopefully, in the end, we'll make over $12,000. Yep.
And how much did it cost to buy all the ingredients? And you had a huge industrial scale. You had a bunch of stuff.
We were really fortunate with the ingredients all got donated, so we didn't have to pay for that. The scale was also donated, and all the propane that we needed got donated. And aside from that, we needed to buy everything else though, and our cost on that was somewhere between $8,000 and $9,000.
Okay. And I think you mentioned maybe before the interview started that you started a student org to make this happen. So when did that org start? How many people were involved? How big of an operation did you have to
Yeah, well,
lead?
when we first came up with the idea, we thought, okay, if this is actually going to happen at all, or even if we could be close to making it happen, we've got to make it official, some kind of student org. That way we have access to some of the university's resources, like the student org fairs, things like that. That way we can get a hold of people. So that org started in October 2013. and it was me and I want to say 6 other people. So there were 6 people on our board starting to plan the event, and we carried out with that amount of people through the rest of last year and into first semester of this year, where some people got tired of it and dropped out. And eventually, after winter break this year, I decided we really need to get this thing going. You know, it's kind of crunch time now. Like, we're still 3 or more months away, but that's a small amount of time for this great task. So we brought in a few more people, got our board up to 9. Then the 9 of us planned it out most of the way. We had, I think, 60 members in total that were, like, 60 other members that we knew would be, like, helping out at some point or another, that, you know, were, like, helping us plan a little bit along the way. It came to our test runs, the 500-pound, 150-pound test runs. And then once we got to the actual event, then it was a bunch more people that just kind of showed up and helped, that had never really heard of it before, but they thought it was cool, which was really great for us.
That's very exciting. So the bottom line, you and your friends got together one night after you ate some Rice Krispie bars that weren't yours, and you decided, you know, let's just start a student org and make the world's largest Rice Krispie bar. That takes a certain level of ingenuity and definitely a certain level of skill that I think a lot of people wouldn't really think would go into making the world's largest Rice Krispie bar. So can you talk about maybe the stuff you learned? I mean, imagine you had to learn a lot about how to deal not only with the university, trying to get resources and things like that, but with people. You had a big team to lead. So what kind of skills and things did you learn kind of inadvertently in what was otherwise just a fun activity?
Yeah, I mean, when we started out, it did kind of start as a joke. Like, the first week or so, it was all like, oh yeah, you know, we're just gonna do this, and we just kind of joked about it. But then we were like, you know what, we're actually gonna be serious about this. We're gonna try to go in further, and that was where it kind of started to separate out. You know, some of our initial board members, you know, were a little bit more skeptical, and they stayed through, but you know, it was like a little bit harder to get some of them motivated on occasion. And I mean, me as well. Like, I would kind of lose faith. Like, okay, well, this is really hard. You know, we haven't heard back from, you know, people from a long time. Like, let's see, it just got really hard to deal with not having any of the answers. And it was kind of a, well, we have to figure out this thing before we do that thing, and it was just a chain, and we were waiting on, you know, maybe one email to come back, so we couldn't proceed. And at some point, it kind of clicked for me, at least, where it was like, okay, you just need to get things done. Like, do like the little stuff, you know, that you can do. Like, don't wait, just don't put anything off. Doing things as soon as possible. Don't procrastinate, obviously, because you know things are going to fall through. Also, trying to find backup plans for things, because you never know what's going to go wrong. That was one thing that I always tried to figure out, whereas everyone else was like, oh, you know, this will work. Like, we'll get this, we'll get that. And it's like, okay, yeah, hopefully, but if we don't, you know, if we don't end up getting Rice Krispies from, you know, Kellogg's or marshmallows from Kraft, then we need to find another way to either get them, or we're going to have 2 of the ingredients and not the 3rd one, and we're not going to be able to do it. So there's a lot of just like trying to plan ahead, doing things like that, trying to just, I don't know, go through and I guess kind of reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
But that was what we struggled with the most.
So I guess my next question is, I mean, now you've made the Rice Krispie bar. What's the next thing that you're going to make? Like, Madison is expecting now. You've created a level of expectation that needs to be met.
Yeah, I was kind of afraid about that. A lot of people asked us even before we did the record. They're like, oh, well, that's cool. Like, what are you going to do next? It's like, oh, whoa, we haven't even made this one yet. Like, what are we going to do next? And I always told them, you know, well, we'll see how this one goes, and maybe we'll do something in the future. But our board kind of talked about it a little bit, you know, just in joking, like, oh, yeah, maybe, like, we'll make the world's largest brownie or something. And it's like, yeah, let's wait a bit. You know, it's the planning that it took to go into this was a lot, and I think everyone needs to cool down a bit and, you know, see where things go for a while, try to get their grades back up, things like that. And then after that, I don't know, maybe we'll try something again. Probably not by next year, but maybe in 2 years we'll come back and do something else. Awesome. But yeah, we'll keep you posted.
Cool. Well, I think my last question, unless you have anything else that you'd like to add, how much is left? How much do you need to sell just as a pound total, and where is it all being stored?
So we've got probably close to 1,800 pounds left, which seems like a lot, but considering that we've already sold, almost 4 tons, it's not really that heavy. And half of our inventory is currently sitting in my dorm room, and half of our inventory is in our storage locker, which is about 15 miles east of campus.
This was an interview with Joe Tarnowski, who's a physics major here at UW-Madison, who started and then managed to follow through with the world's largest Rice Krispie bar. So it's very impressive, and you should definitely go buy some. So thank you so much, Joe.
Great, thank you.